some other parents might join us. So Miss Abbott's going to start recording.
And sharing my screen. Give me just 1 second here. I have to. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I'm Erica Mann. I'm one of the school counselors here at Kilbourne. I work with students, last names MKR through RI.
And I am Sarah Schnell. I'm another one of the school counselors. I work with students with the last names E through KO.
And I am Brianna Abbott. I am also one of the school counselors here, and I work with students with the last names starting with the letters A through D.
And Molly Lord is, she works with our, she is RO through Z, and there's our bell. Unfortunately, she is not able to join us today, but we wanted to talk to our parents about mental health support that we offer here at school, but also how you can help to kind of be the front lines for that mental health support as well. So being a teenager is totally challenging. We are aware of that. We know that. Teenagers now are faced with different obstacles that they are being faced with than what we faced when we were in high school. Obviously, social media was not around for most of us when we were in high school. And so that has added a layer of stress that can trigger a student's mental health and kind of get them spiraling. So that is an obstacle that we're trying to navigate now as parents. Also, the COVID shutdown that has led to some increased mental health concerns as well. The pressure to succeed, balance. These kids, I mean, they have a lot on their plate. If they're in AP, College Credit Plus courses, if they work, if they're involved with a sport, and a club, an activity, there's a lot of demands. And sometimes that pressure and the stress can be so overwhelming. And we see that being mental health specialists in the building as the counselors, we acknowledge that. So that's why we felt it was beneficial to kind of put together a presentation to talk to our parents that we team with to make sure that our kids are really staying on top of their mental health. And if we see an increase in a need for support, you know what to do and where to turn. You want to go to the slide? Okay. So the next slide, we really rely on our parents. I know that all of the four of us school counselors, we really view our parents as team support. We are a small village that is just trying to be here for your whole child, whether that's through their academic, their personal, social, their career quest throughout high school. We are there to support all of that. So warning signs for how do you know if your son or daughter needs additional support? You are our front lines. You are going to be the ones, like, you know your child best, and we really rely on you. Now, if your son or daughter comes and can verbalize that they might need some additional help, that is wonderful. They will ask for you. Some of our kids, however, they keep that buried inside or maybe don't feel as comfortable asking mom and dad, hey, I've been really struggling lately. And so that might be as simple as you are creating a comfortable space where your child feels comfortable coming to you if they're struggling. So whether that be, once or twice a week, you kind of set aside some time where it's, no judgments. I'm not going to have a reaction, but how are you doing? Like, truly, how are you doing? So your child may ask for it, or they might be showing you signs. If you see a sudden decrease in their appearance, or if they're not eating, their sleeping patterns have changed, their mood, that is a clear sign that something's going on. Something is kind of out of balance. If we think of like this pendulum that our kids are on, if it's swinging a little out of balance, we need to hone in on what's going on, get to the trigger, and then offer some support. And if you have that gut intuition feeling, something's up, something's not working here, or I am really concerned about what's going on with my child, talk to them about it, ask them. Another indication is if your child's friend says something to you, like if a peer's friend says, hey, Mrs. Smith, Johnny said something to me that was of concern and I wanted to pass that along to you. Even if you go back and ask your child, did you say this, and they deny it, chances are they probably said something, and that is their outreach of crying for help, but may not feel comfortable talking about it with parents. So those are kind of some indicators that you want to pay attention to and be focused on, because we don't want to miss if our students are really struggling with their mental health.
And so if you find that your son or daughter is struggling, there are lots of resources that are available for support, including, as of last July, the addition of 988 as an easy to remember number. It is actually the same, routing them to the same thing as what has always been the suicide hotline and the crisis text line. Those are still there too. So students can still call the normal traditional suicide hotline or text the 741-741 crisis text line. Those still work. But now, to make it even easier, they can just text 988 or they can call 988, and that's going to connect them to mental health support. There are also specialty crisis lines. We have those available on the counselor website. So with people with particular needs. So maybe if I identify in the LGBTQ plus population, then there are some hotlines specific to that. And so there are additional specific specialty crisis lines. Additionally, here in Franklin County, Nationwide Children's Hospital, for students that are little up until age 17, can use the Nationwide Children's Hospital psychiatric crisis line. And so you can call them and you're linked to a mental health professional who will help do an assessment over the phone and help guide what some of those next steps are, and linkage to additional support is needed. Because we know that things are hopefully not always a massive crisis, when you realize that additional support is needed, you might be realizing, hey, something's going on. They're really not doing very well, like Mrs. Mann was talking about. And so when you notice that, ideally, before we get to that crisis point where you're needing that 988 number or needing that Children's Hospital psychiatric line number, it's ideal if we can put them in connection with some mental health support earlier. And so a lot of times, because of insurance and all of the ramifications that can come with that, we definitely encourage you to talk to your pediatrician for referrals, to use your insurance's provider approved list. And then there are additionally some search databases that you can use. Psychology Today has one, and the OSU Community Provider Database also has one. And I'm going to just show you really quickly here that if you go to the counselor website and click on the personal social section, you can see that we have lots of different areas of, information, stress and coping strategies and reframing and anger, lots of issues that might be relevant to kids and to you and your family and your son or daughter and their needs. But if you go to the Seeking Mental Health Support, we do have a link to the Psychology Today search tool and to the OSU Community Provider Database. We're lucky that because we're in Central Ohio, things like, I'm trying to get to the top here, things like OSU is a local resource for us. If you go to the Psychology Today, once you type in your zip code, you can then go through and you can say, okay, I want to limit it by specific insurance types. I want to look at a specific type of therapy. I need it for a specific age range. So you can get resources that way. And then on the OSU Community Provider Database, you don't have to do that zip code up front, because it's for Central Ohio. But as you go through this, you can specify if you want a male or female, if you have a specific ethnicity or religious preference, you can talk about, sorry about that. You can talk about the specific competency area of like what the issue is that you might want. And then again, you have that insurance provider piece that you can use to help get that information of how to access the support that's appropriate for you. And so again, all of that information is on the Kilbourne Counselor website to be a resource for all of our families.
So student support at school is, of course, incredibly important as students, spend.
Mrs. Schnell, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
If all of the attendees could mute themselves, that would be really helpful because I can hear some of the information that's happening in the background. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, of course, as we all know, students spend a lot of time here at school and among these hallways. So, when you feel that your student is potentially struggling with something, particularly related to their mental health, communication is super important and very, very helpful for us. So, for instance, when it comes to that classroom support, it's helpful for teachers to have some background into students' experiences. So, as we know, teachers get late work frequently, right? But if teachers have some insight into knowing, that a student might be managing some mental health related issues or going through something difficult, then they would be more likely to offer some empathy and some flexibility and maybe even some accommodations. In helping that student to feel successful in the classroom. We highly, highly encourage you guys as parents to reach out to your students' teachers if you know or even suspect that your student is experiencing something difficult. So just like a quick FYI, emails always will begin with the first letter of the first name and then the rest of the last name at wscloud.org if you ever feel you need to reach out to one of your students' teachers. Then additionally, you can always, always, always reach out to us as their school counselors to help facilitate that communication as well. Then, of course, as their school counselors, we're here to support them as well. So as their counselors, we cover all three domains, academic, college career, and that social, emotional, mental health piece. And oftentimes, these three can all be linked, right? Like they can all kind of play hand in hand. But we work with our students a lot to support their social, emotional, and mental health needs. So just some examples of what this looks like. It can look like some brief, like solution-focused work of building coping skills and helping to manage some distress that might be happening during the school day or even at home. This may look like helping to navigate peer relationships. This could involve help in building self-advocacy skills and how to ask for help. This may entail weekly or bi-weekly check-ins to see how students are feeling and how their needs may be changing week to week, and even, quickly responding to crisis-related situations as well. So we're frequently meeting with our students to help support their mental health needs throughout the day so that they can feel supported and move through their day even when they're facing some of those challenges. And then finally, if as a team we determine, that your student might need a little bit of an additional layer of support, we do have 2 mental health specialists as well who are school-based social workers here in the building. And they can provide that additional layer of support for your child. And as school counselors, we can help determine if that would be a beneficial layer to add or not. So, we will definitely leave time for questions. Just one quick little plug, Miss Abbott, Brianna, she showed us some of the WKHS counselors website. Please always feel free to access that at any time, especially if you need something really quick under that personal social domain, or also, any academic, college, career. Those are all, a wealth of information if you ever need, a quick piece of information. And then another quick plug, next Lunch and Learn is going to be April 21st at noon, and that's going to be focusing on the ACT and SAT testing. So with that, what questions do you guys have, and how can we continue to help support?
And sorry, we didn't clarify this, but if you have
yeah.
questions, if you would type them into the chat, that way we don't have people, kind of fumbling over top of themselves as you're like trying to ask something and someone else is asking, and then we'll share that question with everyone. We always design these lunch and learns to be about 10 to 15 minutes of us sharing information with you, and then we give lots of time for you to be able to ask your questions, because sometimes we know that you don't know what you don't know. And so we want to make sure that we're being super focused on giving you that information that would be most helpful to you. And so we would definitely want to answer your questions. And so if you would type those into the chat, then it lets us know where we should be focusing additional information. While people are taking that chance to be able to type out some of the questions that you might have. I also want to put a plug in. One of the things that we have going right now, we've got some resiliency groups going, but we have a grief group that's going to be starting next week. We actually have 2 of them that are going to start next week. And so if grief is an area of need for your family, if that's something that has touched your family's life, certainly let us know that, because we'd love to get your son or daughter connected in with our grief support group. That's going to start up next week. And that's always even though it's a really hard topic for kids, it's always a really good experience for them to be surrounded by other teens who, can help them realize that they're not alone with all the tough feelings that come with grief. I'm not seeing any questions come through yet. I think the other thing, oh, we do have one. We've got a couple. So one of the parents wrote, just wanted to mention a resource that helped us was the community-based counselors who will come to the school to do therapy and counseling sessions. Do they still do that? And it was nice for kids who are busy after school, working parents who have trouble getting to a place for counseling, etc. They can see them during prep or something like that. So that's actually something that isn't happening any longer here at Kilbourne. They've had to realign some of our provider services within the district. So the mental health specialists would be the people that we would refer to if they're needing that. But if they really need ongoing long-term counseling, especially with the benefit of telehealth and things, families are able to access services, even if it is during the school day, but we don't have those, like what used to be North Community Counseling, coming in anymore.
And then it also says, can you please send out the PowerPoint that you shared today? This will be on that counseling website, wkhscounselors.com. So we're actually currently recording, so the video will also be posted and linked on the website as well.
And all the information that was shared in the PowerPoint is also on the website. I know we talk about this website a lot, but it truly is such a wealth of knowledge. But yes, so the PowerPoint will be on there, as well as all the information that we compiled into the PowerPoint.
And part of the reason that we do that is because on March 17th at 12:15, you might not be thinking that this is an issue that you need, but it could be the middle of the night or on a weekend, and we're not 24/7. And so we want you to have access to all of that information at any time that you would need it. And so that's why we've added all of that information onto the site, so that you have what you need when you need it. We will hang here for a little bit longer for anyone else that does have questions. We want to make sure that we're answering your questions, but we also know your time is very limited and we want to be respectful of that. So if you do have more questions, keep typing them in the chat, or letting us have that opportunity to answer them. But if not, enjoy March Madness and St. Patrick's Day and the weekend that's just ahead. And hopefully we'll see you again in April.